I need to tune the signal on this TV. There's an old trick after the war that we used to do. We could use a coat hanger and it would get a local signal. Oh no, not you! The original Condemned was one of my favourite games ever, which is surprising considering its genre. It's a first-person survival horror game. SEGA publishing a game like this was really unexpected. I did play Condemned 2 once before, but I was turned off from playing it because of the destructible weapons. The people's heads are thicker than axes. This thing is as useless as an underwater trampoline.
Or it's as useless as your existence.
Shut your mouth before I find a different use for that coat hanger. Remember, finding a TV signal wasn't the only use for them after the war. I'll use this thing to get rid of you. Permanently. In the first game, you could pick up any weapon and use it for as long as you wanted. You would be super overpowered. Not that I care, because I love being overpowered. But there was two things in the first game that I really loved. One of them things was the taser, and the other was you could grab a fire axe and just wipe out a whole room of people, no problem. Be like Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th, just a whole camp of kids getting eliminated like it's nothing. After the demise of the Dreamcast, SEGA were proving they wanted to give good developers a chance. Anyone who was willing to step outside of the box, SEGA was going to do it too. You could tell SEGA's parents were like, if somebody jumped into a mech suit and went sliding across their knees on the floor, would you follow them? Yes, I would, at sonic speed. A lot of those 2000 SEGA games are really good. I've played a few of them recently, Vanquish and Viking to name a few. But I've also got Binary Domain, not one that many would consider a premium game, especially when at the time people were just praising games like Gears of War. They didn't care about. Anyway, back onto Condemned 2.
Why are you so easily distracted? It's pathetic.
Ethan has hit rock bottom and has been suspended following the events of Condemned 1. He's at a bar drinking his pain away and being violent, and he's fighting the demons that still follow him. But Ethan has to join the SCU again to help out because some strange events have been occurring. He returns to being a forensic detective and has to use his skills of deduction during the levels. He looks at a crime scene and answers some questions based on what he sees. It's like Sherlock Holmes working at First Encounter Assault Recon, only there's no cool slow motion gunfights. I'm not picking up anything with this. Oh wait, it's telling me to my side there's an absolute loser.
I am rubber. You are glue. What you say bounced off me and stuck on you.
Oh, okay. I am real. You are not. Use my hand. Turn you off.
No, wait.
Ethan will constantly remind the player he's resistant to help out. Ethan doesn't half speak out a little bit too much. Or however Shakespeare said it. He's no longer a baby-faced cop. He looks brutal like Jack from Dead to Rights Retribution. He has been through some stuff. Ethan is an alcoholic and he suffers from withdrawal symptoms when he's sober. We're all alcoholics here. This causes him to jitter when using guns. You can consume alcohol that you find throughout the levels to stabilize his shots by calming his nerves. There is tons of alcohol. There's bottles of the stuff. He's like Kirby eating enemies. I found a box of alcohol in the hotel and drank that bottle one after another. Look at this. Ethan, more like fish, man. This guy's drinking like a fish. That was genius writing. I have to give myself a pat on the back for that. There is 10 green bottles. I will drink them all. There is 10 green bottles, I will drink them all. If 10 green bottles should get dranken in his belly, Ethan has drank too much and should probably not drive. Oh my god, is that song about an alcoholic sitting on a wall, drinking countless amounts of alcohol? Not countless, well, 10. Oh my word! Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall and cracked his head. Kids' songs are wild.
It's raining, it's pouring, the old man is snoring. He bumped his head on the top of the bed, and he couldn't get up in the morning.
The way you say it makes it sound like an old boy got a concussion, and due to the rain the doctors couldn't save his life, so he died in his sleep. The game starts with you bumbling out the back of a bar and bumping into a bum. The dude starts roasting you. He's like, geez, you stink worse than me, and I'm literally digging through trash as we talk. I'm saying fair play, my guy. Ethan's out here looking like the corpse of a sea creature, so I don't blame you for saying that. The first thing you do in this game is a player response. It's a big factor for world building and understanding Ethan's personality, as well as a contribution factor to the reward system in the game. It's like when you see someone in the street that you know, but you pretend like you ain't seen them, you just say nothing, you just keep walking forward, you don't press the A button, you don't click 200, you don't pass go.
Hey, wait!
I can't believe you've done this.
It's only a short window and they sometimes catch you off guard, so you have to be alert at all times.
Hey you. Hey.
What did you do that for?
Can't ignore me now.
The control of the character is improved, giving you more freedom. As much as being sluggish works to resemble a more realistic feel, it can feel frustrating when the inputs don't quite match what your mind is thinking and you want to do. Here it's responsive. Condemned is a gutter experience that is about brawling in survival mode, breaking pipes off the wall and bludgeoning your enemies before they inflict more damage on you than you do to them. He who dares wins is the philosophy in this city. Everyone's crazy and full of rage and just wants to be violent. The combat has you punching with the left and right triggers independently. You press them both at the same time to block and parry depending on your timing. There's combos, chain attacks, environmental kills, weapons and more. You can also do a hook attack, so depending on if you do a normal punch and a hook attack, different combos can be stringed. They're usually quite simple in theory, but practically they're quite hard to pull off. For example, a 1-2 punch combo, you just press the left and a right or a right and the left, and then the finish the combo symbol comes up and you get a short window to punch then. If they interrupt you during that moment, you'll lose the opportunity to finish the combo. Like I mentioned earlier, weapons are destructible. Some weapons last longer than others, but they tell you the stats at the bottom right of the screen before you pick them up. It will say a plus or a takeaway on one of the 4 stats. I would usually only typically focus on the condition stat. It doesn't matter to have a strong weapon if you're only going to get 1 hit. I'd rather have a weaker one that has 15 hits left in it. How on earth is this flimsy piece of rotten wood in better condition than an axe? I picked up a crowbar early on and I used it for 15 minutes. I wish before when I played this game I picked it up, because I would have had a different perception of the game at that moment. When you pick up a plank of wood and you beat up 2 enemies and it breaks, I had the idea that that was going to be the whole game, but that's just not the case. Some weapons you pick up and you will hold for a long time. You have the ability to throw weapons, but be careful because it can land back on your head like a stupid criminal.
I can't believe you've done this.
Combat is brutal, especially in the chain attack. It will slow down to emphasize the power of Ethan. This reflects his appearance a lot. Before he conducted himself in a certain way. This time he doesn't want anything to do with the law, he wants to play by his own book, he doesn't care, he wants to get to the bottom of things. And he might have to crowbar someone in the head to get there. He really does remind me of Jack from Dead to Rights. The enemies don't have much dignity about them too. They'll be spitting blood when they're being hit, bleed from every orifice including their ears. Nobody in this city seems to care about anything. This isn't just a brutal game, it's more along the lines of being defiled. These humans are seen as worthless junkies who tarnish buildings, turning a city into a sanctuary for the sullied. I love that this is the aesthetic of the game. It was one of my favourite things about the first one. They only doubled down on it here. Everyone is shameless about their existence. The combat though was almost too complicated for me to get used to. I found myself just playing as I did in Condemned 1, and I know it's not the superior way to play, but the game was way too challenging for me to be comfortable with it. All these options and nuances for every encounter. I've really tried my best to understand it, but the combat went from checkers to 3D chess. 3D checkers, now that's a good idea. You'd think for a game that only has a left and a right punch there would be about 3 or 4 combos, but if you push down the left analog while punching you'll do a hook, and if you press down the right analog you'll do a kick. Those can be added to combos too. And like I said, these enemies are way too aggressive and crazy. They don't stand still long enough for you to do a combo properly. The chain attacks were the main thing you'd want to do anyway. You just build the chain attack meter by doing the combos. Gun combat will make you wish you had more ammo and this was an FPS game. A shotgun blast will tear a guy to shreds, not literally, but make it look like he's hit by a tornado, ripping him around the place. He'll fold like a wet McDonald's straw, looking like a house has been ripped down around him. But you can explode heads, don't worry about that. Leave people looking like the ice truck killer victims. The AI in the game is intelligent and will try to lure you in and stay hidden behind things in the dark. I'm not surprised they've done this really well here too, because before it was excellent. And like I said, you don't have the taser from the previous game, so when you try to attack someone, you're at a disadvantage already. The level of viciousness and violence around every single turn, it reminds you that you're never in control. You'll figuratively have your back up against the wall at every moment. There's collectibles in the game too. Most of them are environmental things to tell the story, such as sonic emitters. The game tells you these mysterious devices are scattered throughout the city. Their purpose is unknown, but they've been linked to the steady increase in criminal violence. Destroy them when found. The game tells you later that birds can be found near where these devices are. So when you see a bunch of dead crows on the floor, you know there's one nearby. When you go close to one of them, you'll begin to get disoriented and hurt. This is worked into the story and you find out the origin of them and why the frequency messes with their brains. But I lost interest with destroying them early on. I had no intention of getting 100%, I just wasn't motivated for it. But I'm glad they gave you enough information for the story to understand their role in the world.
Birds are attracted to these sonic devices, but unfortunately their little brains can't handle the powerful wavelengths. The brain swells, the skull fractures, and then, they're dead. A lot of dead birds means the device is nearby.
Most of it is for world building or to contribute for the reward. You'll see TVs and radios around the place that you have to tune to listen to what's happening. You might see a guy on a TV that guides you and explains details effectively. Another time you might see a news anchor lady or a guy on the radio telling you something. The guy with the mask is talking to you though, and he's wearing the same clothes as Ethan, so it's safe to assume this is part of his imagination. Whenever he saw this guy on the TV, it's not really happening, it's just his mind's eye.
Ignoring that call from Van Horn was foolish and you know it. Forget the past, how he used you, how he destroyed your life. Find him. Like you, he knows about them, and right now, that's all you've got.
You stupid buffoon, sitting there with your dumb purple head. This is why you'll never amount to anything but the subtext of reclusiveness and a metaphor.
There's additional gadgets that you've got to use. The GPS, which is a map, UV light used for tracking blood and liquids and stuff like that. Spectrometer was used to track the sonic devices. I thought it was for ghosts, but how can you blame me? And finally you have the camera. The camera is for sending pictures from the field back to Rosa. She is the forensic analyst in the game. She is your companion throughout. For the majority of the game she stays at the headquarters, but you do meet up with her later. It's not productive to carry all of these things and solve crimes. Rosa in this game, who has changed from before, she was a no-nonsense lady who had more of a mature energy. This time around they've changed her a lot. Doesn't even feel like the same person one bit. And not in the Ethan been through some stuff type of way, more like the been through nothing, had an easy life kind of way.
Wait a minute. This is not possible. Ethan. Ethan, come in.
There's technically a leveling system. Normally I would love a thing like this where you use an attack and it levels up based on your use, but the one thing that was leveling up was the chain attacks, and that was so hard to get. I think in the whole game I got it about 30 times. That basically meant building the meter through doing successful combos. The chain attack is a QTE that activates when you hit someone and you've got a full meter, and depending on your level will determine how many bars you have. You get told at the end of the level how many times you've used the chain attack. The first level you have to use it 15 times. This might not sound like a lot, but like I said, you have to fill it up with doing combos, and that is not easy. These goons do not want to stand still long enough to let you perform a combo. I actually did find a place to practice the combos later in the game. There's these beasts locked away and I use them as a punching bag. Turn away for anyone sensitive to that sort of thing. Depending on how you perform overall in the levels, you'll get a rating. Additionally with that, you'll get upgrades. For example, the body armor, stun gun, gun efficiency, things like that. They are permanent, so that is good. The rating you get in the level determines the level of the upgrade too. So what that means is if you perform silver level overall on the level, you'll get a silver level reward for that level. I do think that's a really good idea on paper. And making the stun gun one you get early on is good, but they make it so the stun gun requires batteries to use. You might just find 2 or 3 throughout the level, and the stun gun is not like it was before. That's just a reminder to how overpowered it was. Visually, the game is not bad, but it's the atmosphere, it's unnerving. I feel like Ethan is capable, but these enemies are equally as equipped and battle hardened. I no longer have the taser that will give me the upper hand, or an evergreen weapon that dominates every single battle, or at the very least improves my chances of survival in a pinch. They all break, and so does my advantage. It's mainly dark environments with the occasional light. A flashlight is your only companion, and I better make sure I say that right. The lighting reflecting on different surfaces looks great, especially the slimy stuff. The fire effect is extremely overexposed and looks almost cartoonish, which is really unique and it works. It beats when games just put a green screen effect of a fire. What are they, YouTubers? The atmospheric mood is enhanced by the music. It's almost as if the Hunchback of Notre Dame was the DJ in town. I like it most when it's ambient sounds and I'm outside alone. When the music doesn't take you out of the moment, it just makes you think I'm all alone, I don't know what's about to happen at any moment. But I'm also there to appreciate that aesthetic too. This grimy back alley alcoholic that's no better than the people he's beaten up. I don't know why, but it took me a while to notice this. The game would use crashes and other percussive sounds on the punches connecting. When you hit someone, it's like you're the conductor communicating with the cymbal guy, but they're both on mushrooms and suffering from a hangover. You feel the psychosis and collective rage through each hit. It's such a well thought out inclusion to the game, making you feel like you're the orchestra of violence. This world is so dangerous that people are on curfew. A helicopter tells you from the sky on the first level while you step over trash and bodies.
Residents, find safety indoors immediately. Do not remain on the streets. I repeat, return to your homes and lock the doors.
The blood-curdling screams of enemies will make you feel uneasy. Then when someone jumps out onto you, it's giving you a further disadvantage because you're in fight or flight already, but more flight to the Xbox and throw this game like a frisbee. Enemies will get into a royal rumble with each other. No one is on a side, it's all against all. Seeing this makes you feel two things. Yes, haha, that is one less fight I have to do. And also, oh, these guys are not attacking me because who I am. They're just attacking, and that is scarier. Supernatural things are occurring, but you don't know what's real, especially early on. There's a level with dolls that wake up and blow up on you. Not sure what's happening exactly, but it was bloody creepy. There is a constant tension throughout the game, but it's mainly this anxiety that at any moment someone could jump scare you, and 9 times out of 10, it's always a calm before the storm. I found myself running through the later levels because I was so stressed out. I don't typically do horror games like this, and due to challenging combat, these tense scenarios would be amped. Of the many games I've played recently, this was the one I have noticed hasn't had tons of graphics issues. Not that I'd complain anyway, but I want to praise how well this game is made. All on the technical, functional and graphical level. Actually sorry, I feel guilty. There was one time early on, one of the NPCs in this game is a companion of yours. He's on your side. He's one of those guys in the movie where you're like, is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? He says early on, don't go beating up bums. Don't use police brutality. We're the good guys. He basically says it outright.
Mr. Thomas, check it out. Let me remind you, unnecessary use of force will not be tolerated.
But whenever he's got a chance to be sneaky and fishy, he is. It's almost like when a villain rubs his hands together, he does that. And you just don't know why they setting up with him. Why are they doing that? You don't get it. Anyway, that guy early on in one of the levels, his eyes do a glitch. That is the one graphical issue I noticed. And you know why I know that wasn't a one-off? Because remember earlier when I said I wish this game was an FPS game? When you beat the game, you can turn it into an FPS game and get infinite ammo. I replayed that level and his eyes done the same thing. I mean, guys, come on. Nothing gets past me. I'm a QA professional. SEGA, give me money. My eyes don't work. Most of the time you're navigating dark rooms with a torch, so you don't really get to see much of what's going on. You visit a hotel and it's really beat down and dark. A lot of the rooms are repetitive, but it serves its purpose. It's a hotel after all. The scariest and best level was the toy factory because of how unusual it was. But I also really like the museum too. In terms of design, that was a good level. There's a later level where you go to a lodge and it's a snowy area. The level starts with you crash landing near a frozen lake. You have to make your way to a lodge. You see parts of a body and a lot of blood. You're investigating what's happening, but you and Rosa don't really understand yet. And then you make your way into the lodge and you see a body. Not exactly sure what's happening here. You hear a sound in the distance thinking, what was that? Is that some sort of monster or something? I don't know. With the image of that guy slumped on the floor with his arm ripped off, you continue to make your way deeper into the cabin. The growls and crashes sound like they're getting closer and the cabin is shaking. Confused on exactly where to go in this maze, you see a hole and you think, should I go down there? No, I'll detour, I'll come back later. There's a passageway blocked by boxes, and in the distance you can see a guy crawling for his life. Watching him painfully slink away is upsetting, but you're also captivated by what the developers have done here. Now with no choice you jump down the hole and have a look around this room. And then suddenly a bear attacks you. You're running through this house, trying to outrun it, but it's a perfect predator. Even though I'm explaining this part, the experience of this is more intense than I could possibly say here. The movie Revenant starring Leonardo DiCaprio took inspiration from this. I am happy with the environments in terms of looks, but disappointed with them with the amount of destructible props. Early on in the game they make some panels fly off a window, so you know they thought about immersion through scenic details. At certain checkpoints lights will break or things will fall, but you can't destroy much. I thought it was weird that in the first room of TVs stacked up that maybe only half of them could be destroyed. It doesn't make sense, or at least it didn't early on. I think it has something to do with the environmental kills and how you can smash enemies through TVs. I know they put a lot of thought into the world because the level design is smart. Rooms are set out to telegraph how the player should behave or even control the mood. You'll walk up to a wall and see a big hole, and then you'll see a chair or fuel tank that you need to destroy. Especially with the enemies, they want you to know where they are, because in a one-on-one fight it's a level playing field. And you have more to lose, so even if you know their position, they scare you. There are a lot of jump scares in this game, and the way the developers typically set up jump scares is really smart. Here's a great example early on where it shows you a jump scare. It makes sense with the way it plays out too. You walk into a toilet and you see a mirror on the wall, and you think in your head, what would be the worst thing to happen in that moment? The game doesn't scream, the game doesn't throw something at you, knock something off a wall. Look at what it does. This doesn't seem very scary watching this back, but at the time I was shaken up. As you would expect from a SEGA game, it's very arcadey. You'll get graded on your objectives, how well you perform in conversation, how well you respond to people during levels in passing, and even how well you perform during the forensic parts. I will say that seeing people make comments like the first game was scarier sort of confuses me. Having simpler combat and a taser made it very easy to be a god in battle, which made survival rates higher and reduced the fear of being in battle even with 2 or 3 opponents. Condemn 1 is a scary game with creepy atmosphere, don't get me wrong. The story was way better before, and many other elements I prefer, but the fact that I genuinely felt sick to my stomach from paranoia walking around in Condemn 2 means it done its job. Removing the overpowered taser with infinite ammo and giving the player breakable weapons makes for much better strategies and gameplay in this world, and I see that now. This game complements the first one so well. It's a game that is way better than I expected. I judged it so wrong early on and didn't give it the chance it deserves, but second chances are extremely important.
When will you embrace the darkness within? We could be a force to be
Nah, fam, you're gone, blood!